Não vai ser necessário paralisar novamente toda a economia do Canadá por causa da segunda vaga da pandemia da Covid-19. A opinião é de Julie Zerowitz, com quem conversámos recentemente. A deputada federal liberal eleita por Davenport falou ainda sobre o discurso do trono, os novos subsídios do governo e muitos outros assuntos. Acompanhe a entrevista.
Hello, Julie Zerowitz, and thank you again for being with us. A lot has happened since we last talked, the throne speech, the rising of the COVID-19 cases in Canada, also the end of CERB. So we would like to talk a bit about these topics with you. And let's begin by the speech of the throne. And I would like to ask you if you could walk us through the main topics of this very important moment for Canadians.
Thank you. Well, it's so nice to see you, Teresa. It's so nice to be speaking to the Correio da Manhã audience. I want to say, olá, and é prazer estar aqui. Muito obrigada pelo vosso convite. Yes. So you are right. The House of Commons came back in session on September 23. I was actually in Ottawa for the last 2 weeks. And here's the sort of 3 key things I want to make sure that we follow through. And you can ask more questions if there's something you need more information. Mm-hmm. The first part, you're still in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So we have to still focus as a federal government on making sure we keep Canadians safe and healthy. And that includes our seniors in the seniors' homes, and includes Canadians who are trying to get back to work, trying to get their kids to school. So that is a number 1 priority. So our main focus is on the rapid test. And I think you've heard we've bought 8 million of them. We are already starting to distribute them across Canada. But that's in addition to our regular testing, okay? And because the Ontario and Quebec governments are having so much trouble with processing their tests in a timely way, the federal government has come in and we said, we're going to give you even more money and help provide even more support so that you can make sure that you are making sure that we can do more tests as quickly as possible. So and then the third part of that is vaccine. We are focused on getting a vaccine. We really hope to have one within the next couple of months, because we know that is going to ensure that we can go back to normal moving forward. So that's the first part. The second part is, we need to help Canadians get back to work, and we need to help businesses to function. So the second part is all about supporting people and businesses through this crisis. And I want to be very clear to the community. This is not about providing big support programs only so people have money and they stay at home. This is about getting people back to work. We have a key part of our program is to create 1 million jobs, and we help people get back to work. The other part is, what else do we need to do to keep businesses in business? Because we know winter's coming. We know it's going to be a tough winter. So what do we have to do to help support them? So we announced things like we're going to extend the wage subsidy until next summer. And we are working on the loan program and the rental program to see how we can provide some additional supports. So for workers, we have introduced some new programs. So everybody that used to get the CERB, the $2,000 a month, we're now transitioning all of them onto EI. If you don't normally have access to EI, we created a program called the Canada Recovery Benefit. And again, it isn't so that, hi, we can give you money so that you don't have to work. This is about you trying to find a job every single week. And for the weeks that you can't find a job, we are going to help you and support you so that you can have food on the table and you can pay your rent. Okay, so it is a supplement. And we've adjusted the EI program and the recovery benefit program so that you could actually be earning money and also getting some additional support so that you'll have enough money to pay for your food, pay for your housing. But again, every week you have to sign off with the federal government that you're trying to find a job, that you haven't been offered a job, and that you make those commitments I don't know if it's every week or every 2 weeks, but it's very important for me to let the community know that this is about us getting Canadians back to work and our economy back to running as full steam as we can during this COVID. And then the third part of it is we're introducing some big programs. Some of it you've heard before, some of it not. The key part is national childcare. If we cannot allow families to go and do their work while their children are being taken care of, they can't go back to work. So we are seeing women disproportionately impacted. The leaders of some of our largest companies right across the country called our Minister of Finance, called our Prime Minister, and said, national childcare has to happen. So it is a key priority for us. The other thing I want to mention, because there's a lot of seniors, I think, that are within the community and they care about this. We saw too many deaths in the long-term care homes. So the federal government, while it's not our jurisdiction, because long-term care homes are run by the provinces, and that's in the Constitution, but what we're doing is we are working on long-term care standards. That means how should seniors be treated and what services do they have to be offered at all long-term care homes anywhere in Canada. And then we're also changing our criminal code. So if you don't meet the standards to treat seniors with dignity and respect, not only can you be fined, but you could also be charged criminally and put in jail. Because you know what? No one should be treating our seniors the way we saw them being treated before this pandemic, and it came to light very visually during this pandemic. So I'll stop there. There's so much more, but I'll stop there just in case if you have any more specific questions.
Yes, actually, you talked about the end of CERB and the creation of new benefits, also the transition to a remodeled employment insurance. But I'm sure many wonder, why did the federal government end CERB if it plans to continue to provide financial aid to Canadians? Why did this happen? Was it a bureaucratic reason?
That's an excellent question. So when we introduced CERB, our original idea was we wanted to keep people at home. Do you remember this was March and April, and we had no understanding of this virus. So we had to pay enough money to keep people at home. And it was the only way we knew to keep Canadians safe and also keep them at home so that they could put food on the table and pay their bills. So we had to do that as an immediate emergency measure. But now the emphasis is not to keep people at home because we know enough about the virus. We know what we need to do to keep safe. Now it's about how to get everybody back working. And actually, your excellent question actually lends me to a point I should mention, because I have Portuguese leaders call me all the time. Julie, you're spending too much money. The federal government, thinks it's got this open bank account and it could spend. So I said to them, we are committed to spending responsibly. So if you talk to literally any economist in the country, they will say, if we do not spend the money now to help support our businesses and they go out of business, it is worse than us not spending the money. If we don't spend the money we need to help everybody, not only through this, to support them as they're trying to find a job, but also help retrain them, which what we're doing, then it'll be worse. So every economist is saying that, okay? So the economists are saying it would be worse for us not to spend money. But saying that, our new Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, has promised that within the next 2 months, she will present a very clear, transparent plan to Canadians about where are we with the deficit, where we are with the debt, and what our game plan is, how much spending we plan on doing, and how we're going to move towards reducing our deficit and our debt, okay? So she's going to be presenting that plan within the next 2 months. So I go to the local coffee shops, and there's many people work in the construction industry, and so they come to me and they say, Julie, some days I don't feel very well and I have to go in because, my boss will be mad at me and I want to make sure that I don't lose any of my pay. And I said to them, oh, good news. We created the Canada Sickness Benefit. So if you think you might be sick, because no one wants to go to work and infect with the virus to all their other workers, right? Because those workers might have parents who are older or who might have immunocompromised systems. So I said, but we implemented 14 days of sickness benefits. We pay for that at the federal level. So I don't want people to be scared if they really don't feel well, and they don't know if it's COVID or not. They should be staying home. And most businesses understand that. So they don't have to feel like, oh, I'm going to miss, earning money. And, this is bad for my family and I might lose my job. So we've put that sickness benefit there as well.
Okay. So still regarding the throne speech, there have been many reactions, right? And in Ontario, the Premier said that the government missed a critical opportunity to commit to a desperately needed increase to the Canada Health transfer. What's the Liberal response to these allegations?
Well, I think the provinces always do a good job of saying we want more money from the federal government. And the federal government, we've already been giving them a lot more money over the last few years. I don't have the exact figure for you, but we have. And what I can do is just after this, I'll get my staff to send that to you, Teresa, so you can get that. But over the last few years, we have increased federal transfers. What's happening is two things. One is we have an aging population, so the provinces need more money. But the second thing is the provinces are responsible to make sure that the hospitals and the doctor system is more efficient. Yes, we have more technologies now. You don't need to do as many visits. And it's not just about more money. It's about how is it that we are using 21st century ways and mechanisms to deliver services. So we both have to work together. We will continue to work together. Their job always to push back on us, and our job is to sort of say to them they could be doing more on making themselves more efficient. So there's lots of waste in the healthcare system. They've got some work to do as well.
Okay. Regarding the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, we know that Justin Trudeau said it's already underway. So do you think that Canadians should be prepared for a second lockdown?
I hope not. I hope not. I think that we have data. So the difference is, and I don't know if you've gotten a test, I have had to be tested. They take information from you. Where were you? Why do you think you have it? So we know whether someone was in a bar or in a restaurant. We know whether people were in a university classroom. We know whether people were in a park. So we know where people who are coming in and testing positive, where they were. And I think using that information, we could be more targeted in terms of what we shut down. So for example, my understanding is that those that are testing positive now in the second wave are mostly young people, bars and restaurants. So do I think we need to be closing our clothing stores or our salons or like our hair salons or nail salons? No, I do not. But do I think we need to have a targeted approach for youth and shutting down some of our key bars or changing the rules so that we could sort of get past the second phase? So I think we could be more targeted. And I no longer think that we need to shut down the full economy. I think we have to use the information, use it smartly, and target where we need to. And to be honest, if we see that there's a particular part of Toronto that needs to shut down, so maybe it's the bars down near Front Street, but it's not the bars up in Eglinton. So I think we could be more targeted, and we reward those businesses that are doing everything they can to follow the rules and make sure that they're keeping their patrons safe and their staff safe. But I think we have that information, and I hope that is what Mayor Tory, that is what Doug Ford, and I'm hoping that is what our leaders are doing, because it's not a decision that the federal government makes. The federal government is giving 97% of all the money, but it is up to the local government and the provincial government to make those decisions in conjunction with, public health authorities. So no, I do not think we need to shut down. We have the information to be more targeted.
Let's hope so. So let's go back a bit to the throne speech. It also talked about climate action, right? And it said that it will be an essential part of the country's economic recovery. But do you think that the climate action was somehow forgotten by the pandemic, or on the contrary, it was reinforced by this crisis?
Look, right now, most people are very stressed about their kids, about their jobs, about their savings, about whether they can get through this pandemic in one piece. I think that is like when you get into survival mechanism, that is what you're thinking about. Do I think that Canadians still really care about climate change? Absolutely. They are depending on the federal government to continue to show leadership. It's just, it can't be at the cost of not keeping them healthy and safe for COVID. And it can't be at the cost of not supporting businesses and helping people get back to work, okay? But if you read on page 22, I think it's 22, yeah, of our throne speech, it says climate action will be the cornerstone of our plan to support and create 1 million jobs across the country. And then we further go to say that we are going to legislate Canada's goal of net zero emissions by 2050. So it is going to be, climate action is going to be a fundamental part of where we're putting our money to create the 1 million jobs. And then 2, we are legislating that we are going to decarbonize or massively reduce our emissions by 2050. So we're going to legislate that. That means for homeowners out there, and many Portuguese and Brazilians and those within the community have homes. That means there's going to be support to actually make our houses more energy efficient so that we're reducing our emissions. And it also means there's going to be a lot more money for public transit and transportation so that people can get around in a way that reduces our emissions. It's going to be harder for cars. But for those that need cars, we are going to be providing lots of incentive to actually buy electric vehicles for those that don't have cars. And for those that do, we're working on a clean fuel standard. So essentially that means it's, you know, the gas that we get at a gas station, we're looking to change the gas so that whatever gas goes into your car and you use as your car, it actually is, we cut the emissions that the gas uses substantially. So those are all the things we're doing. So I can assure you, climate action is core. Our children and grandchildren rely on us to continue to lead on these files as we move forward.
I've made all of my questions. I don't know if you want to leave a final message to our community as usual.
Look, I want to tell the community that I miss them. You know, I'm used to going to at least 2 to 3 Portuguese events every single weekend. And so I from the bottom of my heart, I really miss seeing them. And if I don't see them at the local shops, local coffee shops or on the streets, you know, I don't get to see them, but I'm hoping to see them, you know, once we get out of this pandemic. And I think it'll be as early as next spring. So what I would say to them is this: there are jobs out there. There's a website called Job Bank. So that's singular, jobbank.gc.ca. There are jobs, please look for jobs. 2, if you're running a business and you're having trouble, or a nonprofit and you're having trouble finding support, go to your local member of parliament. If you are in the Davenport riding, please come and call my office. I have 2 full-time Portuguese speaking people. And so we're always ready to serve the community, but please come. Many in the community are not taking advantage of some of the programs that we have. It's not about just taking on debt. Some of it is grant money and some of it is very good supports. And it really is meant just to provide enough support for you to continue to survive during this very hard economic time. So I tell people, go to your MP. And if for some reason your MP is not helping you and you're within the Portuguese community, and because I'm so honored to represent the largest Portuguese community in the country, I invite them to call my office and we will help them along, okay? So that is my message to them. And the last thing is just to tell people, keep safe, take care of themselves, take care of their family. And I want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. You know, at this time, we can say to ourselves, we're living through an unprecedented pandemic, but it's also time when we realize what's really important to us: our health, our friends, our family, having enough money to put food on the table, and that we're so blessed to live in a country that really takes care of its citizens. And so I think it's a time for us to be very thankful. And I know I'm thankful to be able to serve the community, and I'm very thankful to be Canadian and live in this great country.
Thank you, Julie, and happy Thanksgiving to you too.